went live, and I have some exciting news for an upcoming thing I got going on. So I'm going to share that at the end. But for right now, I just wanted to kind of share a little bit of my story because I know that it's hopefully inspirational to all of you, and just some tips and tricks that I have for interviewing. But before I do that, I'm thinking I want to do kind of a Facebook Live series. Like I said, I haven't been doing them a lot. Life's been really busy. For me, I know that there's a lot going on out in the world with coronavirus. And I know that there's so many individuals that are really feeling displaced right now, whether they're looking for new employment or kind of finding themselves furloughed. So I'm hoping that if right now you're going through your job search, then sharing a bit of my story can help you in your job search and also help you get some strategies for your interviewing that can help. And so, of course, I'm going to share a little bit more about my strategies during this session, but I have a couple of Facebook Lives that I have planned over the next couple weeks. So some of them around interviewing, some of them about preparation for interviewing, some of them about how to structure it, how to come in with the right mindset, being confident, and things like that. So if you're here and you're listening, let me know in the comments anything that you really want to know about interviewing, anything that's holding you back, things that you think aren't that are preventing you from really having the offer letter in hand at the end of the interview process. And like I said, stay around to the end because I'm going to share with you some exciting news about a new thing that I got going on. So give me a second. I want to see if I can get on Facebook and see the live from there, so that just in case if I have any comments, I can see them because I am using a different website to do the live for the first time. Anyway, so like I was saying, when I started my job search in October, I shared with all of you all, kind of my success, especially around resume writing, because that is a course that I was selling at the time. I'm still selling it. I shouldn't say it like that, but the course that I was really sharing with you all at the time to enroll in. And so now I'm kind of shifted. I'm still, of course, doing resume writing assistance. And of course, you can enroll in the resume roadmap at any time. But really, I'm looking at kind of shifting gears a little bit more to interviewing. And so while I shared so much about my process for writing my resume for this, I did not talk a lot about interviewing, right? Because that is a huge part of anybody being successful in their job search, right? You can write a great resume, show up to the interview, and then totally bomb it. And I know if you're like me, especially when you're really, really excited for the job, you're like, I know, this is my dream job. This is what I want. You show up and you're like, I don't know what to do. I am nervous. I don't know how to answer this. So there's all of these feelings and thoughts and things that just go into interviewing that make you feel really worried. But I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that process for me interviewing, and then also tell you a couple of the steps that I did to create a full-blown interviewing strategy. So I see I have a couple of people. Sorry, I'm looking at my phone because I can't see who's on my computer. But if you're here, just say hello in the comments. I definitely want to say hello, know who's out here and listening. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, okay, October 2019, I started, I didn't start in October, right? But I landed my dream job in October, somewhere that, of course, I still am so happy, so thankful to just be in the role that I'm in. Also have an employer that is really doing their very best to make sure that everybody is employed during this weird time, just really being very about employees. And so I'm very thankful to work where I am or where I do. But going into that, I had two interviews at the same employer. They came a couple months apart. But the first one that I went to, I was so excited. I can't tell you, I called everybody. I was screaming. I had also put a lot of work into preparing for this interview, so I had done all my research. I reached out to all of my contacts. Anything that was on the internet about these people that I was going into the interview with, I knew about. I used that in my interview. I prepared all of my questions. I even found out some of the interview questions, right, by doing some really good research. So I pulled out every single stop because I was so excited about this opportunity. And then where I didn't realize that I didn't put the work in, was when I showed up to my interview, right? So I showed up and I was so nervous, and I was like, I don't even know what to do right now, because I was just so excited. And so what I had to do was, after that, I stepped back and I was like, wow, so I had really great answers, but I was really, really nervous. And why was I so nervous? Like, I went in, and at the end of the interview, one of the interviewers asked me, so Mercedes, I just got to be honest with you, like, this is a tough crowd. Are you going to be able to deal with that? And I was like, why was she asking that? And it was just because I was super nervous, and because I hadn't done the mental work to prepare to be confident in my interview. I did all the other hard work, the interviewing practice, the research. I did all of that, but I forgot to take care of my mind, right, my psyche going into it. And because of that, I really bombed that interview for a position I was very excited about. And so when I got my next job opportunity, I made sure that I was in the right place to make sure that I positioned myself as the best candidate, not just in my interview answers, but how I showed up in my interview, right? I showed up as confident. I showed up as talented. I showed up as sure in my answers, somebody that can make results, make things happen. And when I showed up in that way, I got a lot better results. And like I said at the beginning, about 4 to 5 business days I had submitted my 2 weeks notice from the moment that I went in that interview, right? So it's not something that is easy to make sure that you're in the right mindset for interviewing, to make sure that you show up as confident and as the best candidate for the job. But I'm going to show a couple of strategies that I used to make sure that when I went into that second interview for my dream employer, right, I wasn't showing up scared or nervous or anything like that. So anyways, I still see that I have people on. Please let me know. Say hey in the comments. This is Mercedes if you kind of like follow me but aren't quite sure who I am yet. But just to let you know, I have been in HR for over 5 years, and I am right now an executive recruiter. So I pretty much live, breathe, and eat the recruitment process. Maybe not eat, that's kind of weird, but I do it on a daily basis. So I'm sharing not only my experience as a job seeker, but also just tips from my own career. So anyway, so back to the story, right? Oh, hi, Tori. Hey. Okay, so keep saying hello. But anyway, so like I was saying, I lacked the confidence, and then I had to figure out, what did I do wrong between interview 1 and interview 2, right? And so in between that, I had figured out what I was doing wrong, and so I implemented a strategy. Hi, Marion. How are you? Okay, so the interview strategy, right? So the first thing that I noticed that is always a part of my star story is my interview process is my star stories, right? And some of you have heard of star stories before, and some of you haven't. But the thing that was what I missed in my interview was that I wasn't showing up with confidence because I didn't truly flesh out all of those star stories and align them with the role. So I'll talk about alignment a little bit first, but if you don't know what star stories is, it's situation, task, action, and result. So anything that goes into your personal, professional branding starts with those star stories. So how do you do star stories, right? You think of things that you've done in your career, amazing responsibilities, tasks, projects, whatever that is that makes you amazing in your career. I want you to think about what those stories are and those highlights in your career. And then when you talk about them, you're going to put them in the STAR method, which is situation. So what was the environment, the situation that you were working in? What had to get done? What needed to be, produced, whatever that was. Task. So what needed to be completed, right, for this to be successful. Action is what you specifically did to bring that to fruition, to make that successful, however you want to spin that, right? And then the last one is a result. So what was the result of everything that you did? And it's about you. So don't put team, don't put group. It's about you, right? And so you have to start with those stories and develop them. And what I made the mistake of doing was that I had thought and I had aligned myself so much, but then I didn't have the stories to back up my answers, right? So I understood what I needed for the job, and I understood how my skills aligned with the job. But then when I came to my stories, I didn't align them very well. I didn't have them set into place. And so that was something that I had to understand. Like, even though I had all these great stories, I need to better understand how to align them with each interview question, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit more too. The second one is to figure out the perfect candidate, right? So I always told everybody, whether they're tailoring their resume, their interview, whatever that might be, is that they always start with the perfect candidate profile. So they need to go figure out, what are these people looking for, whether it's the recruiter, the hiring manager, the employer, whatever. What are they looking for? What do they need in a candidate? What's going to be needed for the candidate to be successful, whether that's credentials, education, background, whatever that is. You have to figure that out. That's only going to happen from research. So for me, when I went into to that interview, I thought I had a good understanding of what they wanted, because I had already done this in so many ways, but then I didn't really understand the particular market that I was going to be working with in this role. And so for that reason, some of my interview questions were off. And I also need to present myself in a more confident way, because the individuals that I was working with were going to be tougher individuals on a client to, I'm not getting into the details of the role, but the relationship that I was going to have to build there was going to have to be a very solid, structured, confident person, which in general I am, right? But it didn't come out in my interview because I wasn't clear on that profile. So I couldn't make sure that I showed up in that way, which it was so important about that role. So that's just something to make sure that you understand the people, that what they want, what their profile is, what their ideal candidate is, because you have to make sure you show up as that candidate, right? And when you understand what that is, you get clear, right? And so you're not as confused, or you're not feeling as unsure, or you don't have any doubt, because you automatically know that you've already aligned yourself with that position because you're clear on that. Cool. Any questions? Sorry, I keep looking at the chat. Any questions so far about that? I don't think so. Okay, going on. So step 3, right? I already talked about this. So so basically in step 1, that's your star stories, right? So that's talking about you, what makes you great. Number 2 is figuring out what they want, right? And step 3 is aligning that, right? So what happens when you get into an interview, why you feel nervous, right? Is because it's the unknown. It's a feeling like you're not prepared, right? So you feel like, well, what if they ask me a question that I don't know how to answer? What if they ask me about something that I'm not qualified in? What if they ask me about something that I don't want to talk about? Like, what if they ask me about why I left my past job, or why I'm unemployed, or something like that? Like, you get nervous about all of those unknowns. But when you get clear about what those unknowns are, so when you go into your interview, there shouldn't be one thing that you're scared about answering, right? Because we all know what those are, right? We get fearful of what those are. And for me, one of the things that I was most afraid of was a particular skill set in that position that I did not have, and I was going to have to grow in that position. And so that was just a big fear for me. So when it came up to asking those questions about how I would grow, how I would learn, I was very nervous when I answered those questions. And had I spent some time really aligning myself with those needs in that position, I would have done so much better in that interview, not only because I would have had better answers, but also because I wouldn't have been so afraid of, how they were going to perceive my response, right? Because I wasn't confident in it. So that's where it comes to step 4, which is really doing a self-mock interview. So when you ask yourself the hard questions, when you write out the answers, when you develop these star stories and align it with the ideal perfect candidate, and identify and align them in that way, that's where some of the nerves, some of this lack of confidence, the self-doubt, all of those things go away, because you're absolutely prepared and ready to take on whatever your job search and your interview has for you, right? Because you have not only the backing of understanding who you are as a professional and what you stand for. I'm very about personal and professional branding. You know that. But if you don't have all of those things in order, if you're not clear about those, that is where the self-doubt, the fear, all of those things come in. So that's about me and my story, right? I had to grow as a professional to hopefully be able to share those things with you. Now, that didn't mean that I was a bad interviewer, right? Absolutely not, because I told you when I overcame those barriers, those mental barriers that were keeping me from succeeding, I got that next job 5 days after my interview, right? So it's not that I didn't have the skill set. It's not that I didn't have the background and the experience to be successful in that role. It's because I didn't show up in the right way. And that's what I want to drive home for you all today, that if you put in the work in your job search, especially preparing for your interview and doing what's necessary, what's needed to be done, you will certainly get results in your interviewing, right? So anybody out there, I see I got quite a few people watching. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for those comments, I want to show you that special thing that I was talking about. So I've had so many people in my community just saying like, okay, I love the advice that you have. I love your resume advice. I'm enrolled in your resume course, but like I also really need help with interviewing. And so for me, it was important to make sure that I kind of listen to those needs. I always want to make sure that I support you. So that's one of the reasons that I'm sharing this story about my interviewing. But also, if you are somebody that feels like you really, really, really need to figure out how to interview, like you feel every time you go into the interview, you're like, okay, I don't feel confident. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not getting the job. I don't know how to fix it. Or if you really just need feedback or strategies and things like that to move on to the next step, I really want to share with you this workshop that I put together, right? So I have just recently started enrollment for this very new Interview Bootcamp workshop. It's called Show Up, Show Out, okay? So the whole idea is that you show up to your interview, you are fully prepared, you are confident, and you show out. You show who you are, you show why you're an amazing professional, you show all the things that make you amazing and special. And you're going to learn how to do that in the workshop, right? So I'm going to teach you everything from interviewing 101. I'm going to teach you how to be more confident. I'm going to teach you all about those star stories that I was talking about. I'm going to teach you how to prepare, right? So it's like sometimes, like I said, that lack of preparation is some of the things that keep you from succeeding in your job search. And it's because it creates fear, it creates nerves, it creates self-doubt and worry. And so I do not want that for any of you. I know you all can be amazing interviewers. I know you can all show up, show out, and get the job, right? So what I'm doing is right now, I do have early bird pricing for interviewing, for the interviewing bootcamp, workshop. I'm dropping my phone all over the place. Excuse me. So right now I do have early bird pricing. I will post the link to the link to enroll for the workshop in the comments. 1 second. There we go. So that you can go check it out. But basically, I'm teaching all of the things that I learned in my recent job search. I'm teaching you not only strategies for learning how to interview, but also how to do that well, show up as the best candidate, and show up confidently. So I hope that you all enroll. It's early bird pricing until May 1st. So you can go to the link and check that out. And hopefully you enroll before then so you can get in for a much lower price. But if not, you can do afterwards. The workshop is a live workshop. It's held on Zoom. So you'll all be able to do that while social distancing appropriately, right? Keep staying safe and healthy. So you'll sign up, you'll get the link to the Zoom, you'll show up on May 9th, and we will all show up and show out together. So anyway, I also wanted to let you know that there's a workbook included. So after the workshop, if you're ready to put in the work to do this type of research, write your star stories, and also do the preparation that you need to do for your upcoming interview, you'll get that as well. So that way you can show up and show out. Okay, so I think I saw a question. Tori said, what about phone interviews? Do you do those same strategies for those as in person? Yes, so I absolutely do. There's, of course, a different approach to phone screening. You have to be a lot more brief in phone screening because it's very easy to just get completely, to lose your audience on the other side. So a lot of times when people are phone screening, they kind of lose their personality more so than if they were in person. But all of the same answers are the same. The STAR method, value-based. I'm probably going to do another live more about value-based interviewing, or value-add-based interviewing, I guess I should say, which is something that I've seen come up a lot recently, right? More of this idea of not just having the skill set, but also just really coming to an interview and being able to provide value and insight and align yourself highly in the interview. So that's what I'll be talking about as well. But those are the very same strategies. Yep, they still work. Okay, I have a few people on. I am done. If you have any questions about my journey or my story, or even about the boot camp, let me know. But I do hope that you check out that website. And oh no, it's telling me I have messages. This thing is kind of weird. It's my first time, so forgive me. But I'll see you all next time. I hope that you enjoyed this live. I hope that you learned a lot out of it. You learned a little bit about my story and also how you can continue to show up and show out in your job search. So I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.